Morning, boys. What's going on?
Well, we talked a little bit about the idea of Roquan Smith missing a second day of practice, and Brett, I mean, I don't know how to ask this question. Is it to his benefit to not play on Sunday if he's indeed in a contract season? If he is indeed a guy that hasn't played great to start the season, would it be wiser for him to sit the game out and worry about contract over playing hurt if indeed that's what he would have to do?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get Bears fans really fired up, sure, sitting out would be the route to go there. But as I understand it, I believe Roquan Smith will play, will start Sunday against the Houston Texans. We'll have to see what shakes out on the injury report later today and his participation status in practice today. But I think it's going to be Roquan Smith plays in this game. Matthew Adams, the strong side linebacker who popped up on the injury report yesterday with a hamstring issue, I do not believe he will be available. So they're going to be down a linebacker. It's not going to be their marquee player at the position, which is, if you're going to miss one, you don't want to be missing Roquan. So I think Matt Adams is out. Roquan is in on Sunday. Obviously, that's not locked in or guaranteed, but that's how it's looking to me. And we'll have to see what shakes out. What's interesting, guys, is they've got the three veterans, Roquan, Matt Adams, Nicholas Morrow, and then two undrafted rookies, Jack Sanborn, Sterling Weatherford, who was claimed on waivers from the Colts. So do they call on one of the rookies? Do they use a practice squad promotion or elevation for a veteran like Joe Thomas? We'll have to see how that shakes out later this weekend. And, of course, take a close look at the injury report later today.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, Brad, because Jack Sanborn had a good, strong preseason. You wonder what he would do with that first opportunity. And then there's the other aspect of maybe they're going to spend most of the day in nickel, which would be, obviously negate the need for a third linebacker. Curious what you think about the emphasis this week on tackling. Is that the way they are addressing their struggles against the run? And is that going to be? Can they do anything different this week to improve in that area?
Yeah, I think it's it's having better fits, right? And how do you have better fits? Well, you've got better angles and things of that nature. You saw too many plays on Sunday night at Green Bay where they had multiple guys missing tackles on the same run. And I think it's better angles. It's not lunging, right? It's running your feet through the tackle. So a lot of different things, and it's difficult to say, hey, we're going out and we're practicing tackling because they're not going out there and getting reps tackling David Montgomery or Khalil Herbert. You don't do live tackling during the season, which I'm sure some of the old heads out there that might drive them crazy, but you just don't do it. So you've got to kind of simulate these things, and they've got some drills. Eberflus talked about wanting them to tackle lower, with the idea being that when you get a guy by the legs, he's not going to get away. And they can't have defenders bouncing off ball carriers. So I would expect them, after a week of focus, not only on the practice field, but in the meeting rooms with the film work, I'd expect them to be better.
We heard Luke Getsy double down on that shotgun play. We also heard him explain that the offense has been a lot more balanced than it appears to be. What was your take on both of those comments on his part? And I don't know, what was your take?
Yeah, the shotgun 4th-and-1 play. They've done studies. They've got statistics. you get a little bit of penetration, and it's gonna be difficult for that puller, in this case, Lucas Patrick, to get through there, and they could defend it all they want. It didn't work, right? So, and the crazy thing is, they had a hell of a lot of running plays that worked really, really well against the Green Bay Packers there, and looking at it a little bit deeper, if you were going to ask him some more questions, do you really feel like with 11 personnel out there, with 3 wide receivers out there, that the threat of those guys actually helps you out at all when you haven't even really attempted to throw the football? So, it was a nice drive. It didn't end well for them, and they lost the football game by 17 points. And that singular call was not the difference in the football game at all. Switching to the run-pass distribution, that he's telling you that the quarterback is changing some of the plays, right? When he says that there were 42 snaps and he thought there were 19 or 20 passes called, I think was the number he threw out yesterday. Well, we know that the quarterback attempted 11 passes and he was sacked at, what was it? It was 3 times, right? So that's 14 pass calls there. And passing game hasn't been good enough. It hasn't been productive. They are not keeping defenses honest. They're not generating the yardage you need. They're putting way too much responsibility on the running backs. So that's got to – I hate to say cleaned up, because you'd clean it up and I don't know what you would have. That's got to improve dramatically. I don't think it's realistic to expect that in 1 week against the Houston Texans, but they've got to get better. And they've got to get a lot better in the passing game if they want to have an offense that is balanced and can really threaten opponents. I mean, they've got wide receivers that are basically we talked about it earlier this week. I mean, these guys are running around with the throwback Panthers Musa and Muhammad jersey that says decoy on the back.
Meanwhile, the Texans have their own quarterback issues. Brad Davis Mills, game manager, the offense averaging 14.5 points a game. I think he's averaging 5.6 yards per pass attempt, 31st in the league. Is he a guy that you think the Bears are going to?
He's got an injury, doesn't he? He's got a thumb or something.
Is he injured? I don't know.
He's got a thumb, but he's going
to play. He's going to be.
He's been full participation on the injury report. And if the quarterback has anything with their throwing arm, throwing hand, they've got to be on the injury report, or you're going to the league finds out you've been hiding something with your quarterback, and you're going to get a nice hefty fine.
Well, I was going to ask, what is the best approach with him? Is it just wait until he throws you the ball? Is it try to pressure him with an array of blitzes the Bears don't typically use? Or what do you think that you'll see from Davis Mills?
Well, I don't think the Bears are going to go outside of kind of their formula on defense, which it's a lot like it was when Lovey was here. I mean, they're going to blitz from time to time, but the foundation of what Matt Eberflus wants to do here with Alan Williams is get home with 4 and have 7 guys in coverage. Mills has not thrown an interception this season. Guys, he has been a dramatically different quarterback at home in Houston than he has been on the road, and that's kind of what shaped my pick for this game, not to get ahead of us here. He's only had 15 starts in his career, and 8 of those have been at home. In those home games, 14 touchdown passes, 1 interception, averaging 7.7 yards per attempt. 7 road games, 4 touchdown passes, 9 picks, and 5.2 yards per attempt. So real difference in the home road splits there for Davis Mills. I think the Bears play their defense. I think they need to stop the run. We've heard Lovey talking about emphasizing the run game earlier this week, and we know that he's a guy that believes in getting off the bus running the football. So play well on first and second down, then maybe you earn a chance to get after the quarterback on third down. But the Bears, I mean, guys, they gave up 203 on the ground to the Packers. That's the second most in 5 seasons for a Matt Eberflus defense.
Does Lucas Patrick start at center and then Mustafer switches off with Tevin Jenkins, or do Mustafer and Lucas Patrick switch off? Does he just start trying?
Well,
yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah, there's no way. I shouldn't say there's no way. I would doubt they would rotate centers like they rotated right guards. To me, that's a recipe for aborted snaps and fumbles and things of that nature. So I don't see a center rotation coming. I think Mustafer's played well. I don't know that they'll want to remove him from the starting lineup, although I haven't heard anything in that regard just yet. It'll be interesting to see. And just because they do something this week doesn't mean it will not change next week. The only, player usage information I was able to pick up thus far, again, was that I think there's a really good chance Roquan plays in this game and that Matt Adams, the strong side linebacker, likely out with the hamstring issue.
Brad, all season long, it'll be a big picture approach to what's going on in the evaluation of Justin Fields. And we had a conversation with Ross Tucker yesterday. Not sure if you heard it or not, but he talked about how it was maybe silly to think that the quarterbacks who would be available in next spring's draft near the top would be better options than Justin Fields. And as we were discussing this morning, how conceivable in your mind is it that the Bears will get to the end of this season and still have a question mark about how much they believe in Justin Fields and how that might influence or impact their draft decisions?
Well, so are you saying get to the end of the season and not know, or get to this end of the season and feel like they have an answer and that Fields is not the guy? Because those are two, I think
both are options. Both are options, realistically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or get to the end of the season and determine, you know what? Fields looks like he is the guy. Let's build this around him. We've got confidence and conviction in the improvement that he made over the course of the season. Everything's possible. I would imagine, provided Justin Fields remains healthy and doesn't miss a big chunk of the season, they ought to have a pretty strong feeling one way or the other, right? I mean, yes, you've got some mitigating factors there with the skill position around him, and that should not be discounted. But these are professional football evaluators, right, with a trained eye for judging this sort of thing. So one way or another, they ought to be able to have a handle on how they feel about him. Does that mean if he's not the guy in their estimation that you replace him immediately? I mean, that's an entirely different question, and one that you have to tackle, I think, a little bit further down the road. But I think there's some patience that needs to be involved here. It is a new offense. He's only got 12 career starts. I talked to a guy earlier this week who said, geez, the people in Chicago need to calm down, was basically the message he had, that, he's super young. You've got an offensive line that struggled or is struggling still. You've got well-documented issues at the wide receiver position, and you need to let this guy see what he can do. And basically he said, you don't want this guy dropping back 40-plus times a game, because it's just going to be a mess in terms of protection and not enough help for him. He said that they're being smart and actually protecting the guy. He said, he doesn't know if Fields pans out, but he said if Fields is going to pan out, it's going to require some extended patience. And he's pointing out that it's week 3 of season 2 for the guy, for a team that shouldn't be headed to the playoffs anyway. So basically just calm down. So it was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I'm very curious to know how many, if you put an over-under on pass attempts. We've talked about this idea of the Bears getting more attempts for him. He's 33rd in the league in attempts because both Dallas quarterbacks have more. What would that be? Do you expect him to throw the ball more? Conservatively, they should have more first downs at home against Houston than they did on the road against Green Bay.
Yeah, and that was, Getsy kind of held that up as like his shield yesterday, right? Well, we only had 42 snaps, which true, and a big reason for why there weren't 11 passes, but like that's not the greatest defense as a lawyer you want to take into the courtroom, right? Yeah, we were so bad, guys. We only have 42 snaps, right? I mean, that's not a real good one to use, but it was true. So they've got to have more snaps, and I think maybe the point Getsy was making, obviously the point he was making is like, hey guys, 19 or 20 of these were pass plays, and we only had 42. So the distribution is sitting there right at about 50-50. Obviously, the execution was a little bit different. The quarterback made some decisions or scrambled or whatever, and they only end up with the 11 pass attempts and 3 sacks. They've got to have more offensive plays. They've got to be better on third down so they can stay on the field. And they've got to throw the ball more, and they've got to throw for more yardage. I mean, you can't – it's so hard to win in the National Football League when you put up these passing numbers that the Bears have been putting up. And I think there's a chance to stay on the field against Houston. The Texans' run defense, guys, 30th in the league in yardage, 20th in yards per attempt. So there's an opportunity for the Bears to do well here. The Texans have been very good on third down. They are tied for 8th right now in the league on third down. So they've been able to get opposing offenses off the field.
So it sounds like you're leaning toward the Bears. Brad, what is your score, and what are the biggest reasons why?
Yeah, I mean, I think this shapes up to potentially be one of those ugly football games. I mean, you've got 2 bottom-tier rosters here that are going to be going at it. The Texans are in that boat. The Bears are in that boat. Earlier in the week, I was thinking strongly about picking the Houston Texans, but I wanted to look at some of the numbers. And as I said earlier, Davis Mills has looked like a Pro Bowl quarterback. If you just look at the numbers, Davis Mills at home looks like a Pro Bowl quarterback. Okay, 14 touchdown passes, 1 interception at home, but on the road, it has been a mess. And he's a young quarterback, just like Justin Fields, but there's such a striking difference between his home road splits that I thought, you know what? The smart pick here is probably the Bears. I got the Bears winning the game 20-16.
All righty. Thank you, Big Z. We appreciate it, pal.
Thanks, Brad. See you Sunday.
Weekend. Yep.
Have a great weekend, guys.